this off.
So is this one from, I'd heard from.
I know, just do it now.
How are we doing?
Sure.
Good.
Meeting at 6:30? It's now.
Just waiting for Josh, so the selectmen have. How did graduation go? I want to know. Best graduation in the world.
You know, I didn't even look to see if his car was there.
What?
They started it because of COVID, so instead of having a big auditorium and
You know what I wanted to ask you about? The Willow Road, how do you shut this off?
go to the auditorium,
Push. See,
That's
green
all.
means it's on.
Yeah.
That means it's on. So you have to put your finger there when
Oh, you have to hold.
you have to hold it when you want it to be here.
I was thinking about that.
he goes over, shakes your hand, and gets the diploma.
I don't recognize anybody without their names under them. I know.
That probably doesn't qualify because it's too steep.
Well, if you want me to do that, I usually.
Both of them, book and the new one.
Yeah, here's what I got.
I love when it all comes into, clarity.
I didn't know if I'd need it or not.
Yeah, I brought this thing.
That would be nice.
But then it might just prolong it.
I don't want to make a mistake. Just turn the heat on when I said it. Turn the heat on.
Did you go over to the,
My husband went to college. There was nobody there. I went
Who's
to
gonna be here?
Dan,
prescriptions.
and then when Lynn's
Peter Barber's here.
when you get it done?
Barbara Beatty, okay.
I got up Saturday morning, walked to the yard, to the store, and mowed the lawn for an hour. I figured if I kept busy.
You've been really hesitant because it makes me very sick.
All right, you ready? You have a quorum of selectmen and quorum of FinCom.
All right, so, the Board of Selectmen meeting for, May
19th.
19th, 2022 is,
I know, I miss being there. I bet it was fun.
empty here tonight, but, Selectman Canning and I are here, and, our meeting is now in session.
Alright, so, yeah, it is, what, 6:35, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members of the FinCom here. Oh, 6, sorry.
5, 6, 7.
What did I miss? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, 7.
So, Finance Committee meeting is, in session.
Isn't there 8 of us?
There's 9.
No, I mean here.
No,
Yep, so you're just missing Barbara Beatty and Dan McMacken.
6, 7, 8.
Dana, Miss Dana.
You're also joined by
we're missing McMacken and Bate.
Lynn Spencer of the CPC, Tony Barletta, Town Administrator, Allison Nieto, Town Accountant, Diane Dunphy, Town Clerk, and our esteemed Town Moderator, Dave Conlon, and 2 legal counsel, Mark. For anybody that doesn't know Mark, he was with us last year at town meeting. Right here, Barbara. And Dan Scripp. So tonight's tonight basically our job is to run through the articles and the motions. We are broadcasting this on TV. It is open to the public if anyone joins. There is no public session for tonight. It's a working meeting of the members here.
Speaking of script, is there an extra script?
Yeah, did you not? You can take this one.
You can have mine if you want. You can have mine. I have made a copy.
Thank you.
Yep.
You sure?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, there's an extra one. We're all set.
I don't need it.
So we'll go through, it's basically a dress rehearsal. The Finance Committee, there's a few new members on the Finance Committee this year. They've done a great job and worked really hard on this, and so I want to give you guys an opportunity, if you would like, to actually read the full motion when we go to that article. Your name is there. So for the person who's reading the motion, if you want to run through it tonight, Saturday, you see how, like, when I'm speaking, I can hear it over the over the loudspeaker. There's going to be fans going, there's going to be air purifiers, so it's going to be really important that you speak loudly and clearly through the microphone. For anybody with these type of microphones at your table, there's a button here that if you push it, it turns your microphone off. So if you're having a sidebar conversation during town meeting, you're going to want to do that. And we don't have to, I think we can skip reading the full omnibus budget motion tonight,
Yes,
if that's okay.
I make a motion to do that.
main purpose of this meeting is to determine what's the quorum, what's the level of vote that we have to put on. Most of these things, as proposed from the standpoint of the motions, will be just majority votes. But my impression was, and I didn't compare the warrant with the motions, but I get the feeling that there are a couple, at least one or two warrants that talk about the possibility of borrowing that the motions don't. The motions do an appropriation. So the motion is what we're looking through tonight. So that will govern the level of the vote that's required. And so if anybody changes the motion, we'd have to change the vote.
I'm sorry, it's very difficult to hear you.
What did you ask, Judy?
It's very difficult to hear him.
It's hard to hear you.
It's very hard to.
Hard to hear you too, Judy.
Oh,
All right, I'll talk more directly into the microphone,
thank you.
and I'll try not to sing or anything, just talk. We'll get through it. All right, welcome, Dan. We should find a chair for you.
I'm gonna steal Lynn Spencer. She's with us for a few more minutes and then I'll.
Good. So the first issue that comes up, we do, at the beginning of town meeting, we do some kind of public announcements and things, and we're going to have representatives of the auxiliary of the American Legion will come down and present the Pledge of Allegiance. We don't have any Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts.
We do have a volunteer for that, unless the auxiliary has already decided to come and do it. But we do have a volunteer, Kim Koshlecki's daughter, who works here in the town hall, volunteered to read the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Because we didn't have a Boy Scout or Girl Scout. So.
Well, maybe they could do it together, and because I think the head of the auxiliary and there are two people that were volunteered for it, so we can have it all go together.
Actually, she's the only girl in her class, and because of that, they're not offering Girl Scouts. So that was why we were trying to include her. But all three of them reading it together would be perfect.
All right. We could make her an honorary member of the auxiliary too, perhaps.
That's on my way in.
Okay. And there'll be some scholarships awarded and that sort of thing, and then we'll come to Judy with the resolution. And the resolution is, as it's been since, I think, 1982.
I'm throwing you a curveball right out of the gate for the FinCom to consider. And you'll see on the resolution on the first page, what's highlighted in green at the bottom are a few new accounts that we've identified that were to consider to be excluded from any floor motions made on the day of town meeting. So it's always said that if you're going to, move to appropriate funds for a new effort, that you'd have to identify where you're going to take the funds from, but you are not allowed to take them from the reserve fund. We've included here employee benefits, debt service, and other reserves for your consideration.
What do we mean by other reserves?
Mostly, stabilization, OPEB. What other reserve accounts? Maybe that's it, yeah.
Could we spell them out since there aren't that many?
We could. If the finance committee is open to that, I think it's a good practice. Last year, we had a floor motion come up and, take from the employee benefits, which, is understood. We build a cushion there because employee benefits are an unknown cost and liability for the town. And so taking from it, before the fiscal year starts is concerning to us. So is debt service and, or debt service, stabilization, and OPEB are priorities of ours, the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen and myself. So, we added it in for you to consider to include starting this year.
So Tony, if they take away from debt service, doesn't that by definition mean that we'd have to borrow more money, and would that require a 2/3 vote?
I'm saying you're not allowed to take it
Can't
from
take
debt
debt
service.
Okay,
So an exclusion.
is that,
So basically, if you were going to, say you wanted X amount of dollars for something else, you have to take it from somewhere else in the general fund. In the past, we've always said anywhere but reserve fund. New, what we're asking you to consider this year is to say anywhere else but reserve fund, stabilization, OPEB, debt service, or employee benefits, because those items are of the top priority. And then employee benefits is a high liability, so.
okay.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
do we,
I don't see stabilization on here, is that?
I have, it says other reserves, but Bob just asked if we would spell it out, OPEB and stabilization, so I would make that change.
Yeah, I think that that's a very good idea. Other services is really broad.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
I
I
mean,
agree. So do you need a motion for that?
do you want a motion and a vote, or is it just sent to the committee enough?
I think it would help with a motion and a vote.
I make a motion to accept that with the change noted.
Second.
Second,
Barba,
Aye.
Beatty, Brown,
aye.
McMacken,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Warren. Vanderslice. Tarmy, aye.
Zohara.
Zorara.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Yep, alphabetically, mostly.
I make a motion that you print it in other than green background, because I can't read it.
I agree with that as well.
One or two sizes up as well?
Yes.
I remembered you, Peter, so.
And the yellow,
I can't read the yellow either. So, yeah, thank you about colors.
Tony, maybe I missed it. Is this any different than it has been in the past?
Yes.
What's in green is new. So in the past, we've always said you can't take from the reserve fund if you're making a change on the floor. We're adding that you can't take from the reserve fund and debt service and employee benefits and stabilization and OPEB.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with that, I think this is a resolution that will be presented to the group, and it's passed by a majority vote.
Unanimous.
Yeah.
So then we move to Article 1. And this is an appropriation of funds for 2022 transfers.
I certainly don't like green.
Majority vote. You want the person who's going to make this to read it?
Yeah, I think, especially for the finance committee members that are new this year, it's up to you if you want to, take a practice run and read the motion.
I do have a question on this. So, Article 1, we had no recommendation because we didn't have the numbers at the time. Is it appropriate to change that now with a recommendation, or is it not needed?
It's not necessary because the book's already been printed. So your motion being in the affirmative signals a
effectively.
recommendation.
It's implied.
And you're meeting at 11:30 that morning to vote on these and anything else, just these. So Saturday morning, the finance committee will meet probably downstairs, take a vote on these to recommend, and then you'll read this affirmative motion during the meeting.
If you are gonna read, if you could pull your microphone close, because it is being recorded.
I move that the following sums are hereby appropriated for the fiscal year 2022 expenses as follows. $7,664.10 for Conservation Commission revolving fund to be funded by available funds in the Treasury, free cash, and $3,411 for library expenses to be transferred from library salaries.
We'll have a second. Vote.
Discussion and then the vote.
Yeah, a second discussion. Yeah, I'm not.
For practice.
I mentioned one thing last year, a few of the FinCom members would make the motion and then start giving their own sort of background on the motion.
Yeah.
Seconded before discussion was recognized. So if the motion is read, seconded, you call for discussion, then that editorialization.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Right, last year, that wasn't happening. Some people were just going into an editorial after the motion was made without it seconded, without it being open.
Can everybody hear that?
That's happened every year.
Dan, what Dan is suggesting is that if you want to offer any remarks, just wait until Dave signals that it's been seconded and we've moved into discussion. Try not to go right into your comments after you read the motion.
I think last year there was some enthusiasm, so folks would make the motion and then go right into discussion without even waiting for a second and without even waiting for a prompt from the moderator. And so the idea is to make the motion, take a beat, allow for a second, take a beat to allow the moderator to invite the discussion or recognize anyone who wants to speak. I think
All of this gets reviewed by the state, so they look to make sure that you follow proper procedure. So it's important that you give time for that second and then discussion.
it also kind of sets the tone for the meeting itself, so that people don't suddenly start getting up and shouting things. It just sets a good tone for the process of a meeting, so that people don't become essentially overly enthusiastic or overly aggressive.
I don't anticipate that this meeting will be as enthusiastic as the last, but is there any time limit for the amount of time someone can speak while on the floor?
Time limit on
Second thing, and then if they want to, if we're going to speak against it, we will then speak against it, but we need to get the motion
You have
out on
10
the floor.
minutes to speak,
Each person has 10 minutes to speak.
and they can only speak one time per article.
I will.
I'm just, I have to go over to Valley Road because I'm on a Zoom for one of
That
our clients.
is ultimately in the discretion of the moderator. So I watched
If I
that.
get finished early, I'll come back.
Our bylaws are pretty loose, actually, and
Two meetings at once.
It's just great.
anyway, somebody can speak for a number of minutes,
I am.
and they may be able to speak, so for example, if they want to ask a question, they speak, it's done, but they have a question.
You are
Then
mysteriously
they're able
listed
to
as
speak
just
and ask the
landmarks.
question. So there's a lot of
You should, Ken. He knows the issue.
discretion that has to be used in order to make sure that people feel that they've had the input that they need to have.
Have
during
fun,
the course.
guys.
So, well, I'll take care of it.
All right,
But
thank you.
And I also would say that the fact that members of the FinCom sometimes just go directly into what they want to say, that's happened at every town meeting that I've ever been at. And we haven't been, denied anything by the state. But I think the point is a good one, because if everything happens in accordance with procedure, then people out in the audience won't avoid procedure too. So I think it's a good thing to set the tone, as somebody said. Well, there might be some ad-libbing going along, you never know. So, okay, then, motion 2, are we gonna go through, you wanna go through each one?
We should go through each article.
Go through each one to say that it's, you know, that it's a majority vote.
Yeah, why don't you start by saying that, and then if the finance committee member wants to read the motion for practice, I'd like to give them the opportunity.
We're doing electronic voting,
Yes.
so the concern about secret ballot is not there, and so we'll be able to tell immediately if there's a majority or two-thirds or whatever. All right, well, motion 2 is for appropriation for snow and ice removal.
Seems to do better.
Appropriation, so it's just a majority vote. Peter, if you want to read it, you're welcome to.
I move that the sum of $149,182.49 is hereby appropriated for the fiscal year 2020 snow and ice account. To meet this appropriation, transfers from the following fiscal year 2022 accounts: $49,182.49 from the retirement fund, $20,000 from the reserve fund, and $80,000 from health insurance.
Seconded by blah, blah. Is there further discussion on the motion? That's the way it'll work. And then when that happens, sometimes you'll want to discuss it. If it's something that's obvious, it's going to, snow and ice removal, I mean, you don't really have to do it unless there's a question, I would think. So it's a little discretion on your part, too. Now, the next one is prior year's bills. And according to Massachusetts statute, if it's dealing with paying a prior year's bill, it takes 4/5 majority. And I'll explain that to the folks. But then if you want to read that, you're welcome to do that.
I move that the sum of $985.30 is hereby appropriated for previous fiscal year's bills in the assessor's expense budget, the Memorial Day expense budget, and the town administrator's expense budget. And to meet this appropriation, transfer from the following fiscal year 2022 accounts: $185.30 from the assessor's expense budget, $500 from the Memorial Day expense budget, and $300 from the town administrator's expense budget.
Great. Seconded by, so, further discussion? And it may or may not be, it's up to you. That's great. Article 4.
Okay, so Article 4, I think we want to think about the motion. I believe it is pages 11 and 12, not 10 and 11. I crossed it out. I can't read what I crossed out.
11, it was 10 to 12.
Okay, I believe it's 11 and 12. And I'm not sure that it's where in the text itself, where it says by replacing the existing section with the section under Part 1 as shown. I don't think under Part 1 is quite right either. So I think if we just strike the under Part 1 as, we will be okay. So I'm going to read it as I think it should be. I move that Article 13, Section 5, subsection B of the bylaws is amended for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 by replacing the existing section with the section shown in the report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee on pages 11 and 12.
That sounds good.
But is it right?
Good. And we'll see if it,
Yeah, I'm not. Do we need the collective bargaining agreements in there?
So just pages 11 and 12?
yeah, I think that's what has been directed to in the past. Good.
That's why so that's why it referred to, section under Part 1.
Oh, that's what, okay.
Just the clerical and professional position.
So 10 is correct then?
No, 12.
Pages 11 and 12 are correct, but I think that's why it
That's why it says section,
says section 1 of part 1. I think that's why, because on page 10, it is section 1
Oh, I
that
s-
refers to.
right, but, flip the page then to page 12, and there is a 1 there. There is, so,
Yeah, it's probably not necessary.
so I think just to avoid the confusion, yeah? Okay.
Good. Okay. And what about Article 5? Again, that's a majority vote because it's setting the classification. And then Article 5 is for compensation of the elected positions.
So that one is, I move that the salaries of the following elected officials are fixed for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022. Selectmen at the annual salary of $1, constable at the annual salary of $50, assessors at the annual salary of $1, town clerk at the annual salary of $63,088.
Good. Seconded by, and discussion. Probably not so much. Right? And then articles, and again, that's a majority vote. And then we go to the omnibus article, which Judy is going to take on and wrestle to the ground, Judy. Way to go.
Gotta try.
My bet's on you. So that's long, and we'll explain how it's going to be, how it's done. Everybody probably knows it's ever been to a town meeting, but probably a word of explanation at the beginning, and then you read it. And as we go through, we try to find if there's any passes and that sort of thing. And again, that's a majority vote. And so then we get to Article 7 on page 6 of the motions. And Dana, you are going to have fun with that.
Okay. I move that the following sums are appropriated for the operation of the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022. Salaries, $437,243. Expenses, $1,221,930. Capital outlay, $80,000. Debt, $1,189,589. Emergency reserve uncollectible, $40,350. Total of $2,969,112. And that $1,964,510 is to be funded from Water and Sewer Department receipts for said purposes. $405,000 is to be appropriated from Water and Sewer retained earnings, and $834,589 in water and sewer debt costs raised through property taxes, less $234,987 in indirect costs funded from Water Sewer Department receipts to be transferred to the general fund.
Well said. So that again is appropriation and transfer of funds, so there's no borrowing involved, so it's a straight majority vote. Article 8, Water and Sewer. Judy?
I move that the sum of $30,000 is hereby appropriated from retained earnings in the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund for paving, including all costs incidental or related thereto.
Quick and to the point. majority vote. And Peter, you have Article 9, rubbish enterprise.
Move that the following sums are appropriated for the operation of the Rubbish Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022. Salaries, $63,266. Expenses, $525,650, for a total of $588,916. And that $588,916 is to be funded from rubbish department receipts for said purposes.
Seconded by, and discussion. And that is again appropriation, so just a majority vote. All right, Article 10, Judy.
I move that the sum of $60,000 is hereby appropriated from retained earnings in the Rubbish Enterprise Fund for the costs associated with the maintenance of the compost area, including all costs incidental or related thereto.
Excellent. Again, appropriations, so majority vote. Article 11, Julie.
I move that the town accept MGL.
That's me.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It's
Julie.
okay, it's hard to read the yellow.
Sorry.
Sorry about the ink running out.
I
There's
move,
always one thing you don't account for.
Ink?
Usually it, yeah.
I move that the town accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53D, thereby reauthorizing parks and recreation revolving accounts for general recreation, basketball, sailing, tennis, 4th of July, tot lots, playground equipment, and the Youth Commission.
Great. Seconded by somebody. And further discussion. Going to Article, so that's also a majority vote because it's just adoption of the Mass General Law. Julie, you're still on for number 12 as well.
I move that the town fix the maximum amount that may be spent during fiscal year 2023 for the revolving funds established in the town bylaws for certain departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, as follows. Revolving Fund, Council on Aging, fiscal year 23 spending limit, $20,000. Cemetery, fiscal year spending limit, $20,000. Board of Appeals, fiscal 23 spending limit, $10,000. Conservation Commission, fiscal year spending limit, $20,000.
Seconded by, and discussion. Is that, there's not going to be any issue there? There's not people that want to go out and spend more than that, I assume? That's not a controversial.
It shouldn't be, because you can only spend as much as is received.
Right, right. I don't recall that before.
That is,
Good, okay, good.
Does she need, you don't need to read that column head, I don't think.
I don't need to read the,
I think at the beginning, we
The limits have to be expressed. The question that we had last year, and we were talking about this a moment ago, was the Modernization Act was based on streamlining the process and eliminating this no vote year after year. But yet, if we want you to put it in the article or in the warrant every year, it sort of negates the idea of having to renew the fund. That's where part of the confusion came in, but there's got to be a number for sure.
Yeah, we've had discussions with DOR about that in the past, because it's that odd thing where when the statute was amended to allow you to do revolving funds by bylaw, if you remember in the past, every year we did revolving funds, reauthorize revolving funds, and set the spending limit. And then the Municipal Modernization Act statute was revised. You no longer had to do the funds every year, but they left in the piece about the funding limit, this expenditure limit. So we have to go through this process, even though it was supposed to be streamlined.
Good, glad I asked. All right, Article 13, Deborah?
I move that the sum of $25,000 is hereby appropriated to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, and that this appropriation is funded from free cash.
Great. I have a feeling somebody want to know what that is, because I don't. The other post-employment benefits liability trust fund. Oh, good. If nobody wants to know, I guess that's fine, but somebody might ask you to explain what that's about. I wouldn't be surprised. And that's a majority vote. All right, Barbara, number 14.
I move that the sum of $250,000 is hereby appropriated to the stabilization fund, and that this appropriation is funded from free cash.
Yep, and seconded, and discussion, if any, probably not so much. Article 15, Judy.
Do you think that anyone will possibly ask what the stabilization fund is?
I think, well, it's certainly possible.
Possible, of course.
It's possible they may ask, but I think if we get the usual stalwart members of the community here, they've been doing that for a long time.
Years, so it's not a problem.
So they probably won't, but stabilization, if you want to, I mean, that's something, that's our bread and butter of keeping us around. So feel free to talk about it if you like. Sell it.
Also, just because you read the motion doesn't mean you have to answer any question about that article.
That's right.
I can stand up, Allison can stand up, I know she won't want to stand up. Any one of us have the ability to stand up and speak and answer those questions. So you don't feel like you're on an island or anything. We'll be there to help and answer questions if they come up.
And that's the same for OPEB.
I'm
Sure.
glad you asked, because I was going to nab you after the meeting and to ask for a thumbnail sketch on what.
I have,
You've told us, but I can't remember.
predicting the questions that are going to come up at town meeting is always a fun game. But I usually have a binder, full, and every article broken out, and I try to think about any question that could come up and have the answers ready to go. So we'll have the resources available to us and the people to answer those questions.
Tony, that was a great question. What's the quick response to that?
What is other post-employment benefits? Essentially, it's the account that we pay for retirees' benefits. So folks who retire from the town, they have, we have our portion of their health insurance and any other benefits that come out of that. It's pretty much mostly health insurance, so for retirees.
Thank you.
We're required to pay that. So there's a liability on the town based on how many retirees you have, and you're building the account to predict how many retirees you're going to have in the future and what that liability would be over time. So the other big piece about OPEB is that it is a factor in your bond rating, how well you fund that account. So that's why it's one of those priorities of ours to fund every year, and we put $25,000 every year into it.
Thank you.
Stabilization.
You don't even need the binder.
Yeah,
Well done.
So the FinCom members could choose, for the sake of efficiency, to make a motion, get seconded, and then say, OPEB is such and such, and, just to save the time of having Tony walk to the thing. But obviously,
Save the
it's
questions.
up to the individual.
Yeah.
Well, we were just asked not to do that, right? We were just asked that we read the motion, let the second happen, and then answer any questions thereafter, not to go right into any kind of explanation.
Yeah, we were just told that we shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. If
My
everybody's
understanding
looking
was
at
you
you
would
with
prefer that
wide-eyed
we
wonder,
not.
then
I'm sorry, I can't understand. either of you two, I'm getting like an
Josh
echo or
was,
something.
Josh,
but-
I think what you were saying was, once it gets into the discussion phase, you could just offer brief
Yeah,
explanation.
a brief explanation to,
If you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Well,
as a precursor, you know, so that, to head off any potential questions, that's all.
if somebody asks a question, I mean, probably everybody in the audience knows what that was, and I didn't. But if there's a question, we can handle it at the time. If somebody knows the answer, and the question is phrased in a way that's convenient for them to answer, put a hand up, I'll recognize them, and it'll happen. So that's no problem.
Second?
I'm sorry. I think, Josh, I'm sorry you can't hear me. You see, we do need sound help here. But I think all I meant to say is that we're not going to answer a question that's not asked.
Yeah, okay, yeah, whatever you want.
I think one other thing I just wondered about. So we're going to recommend masking for the people who attend, I think. But we're leaving it up to the people. But I think I would recommend that anybody who's reading an article or discussing it not have a mask on at that time for the sake of clarity. I think masks somehow can mask things. So I would just, I think that probably if you're doing a motion or if you're explaining something, I would take the mask off just for the sake of it. You're going to be at the podium, so you'd be far away from anybody else. And I don't think anybody should object to that.
Last year there was sanitizer, I think, to clean the microphone.
Yes, I don't,
Like,
We also have covers for the microphone.
Are we
That
doing,
are changed out after each speaker.
oh, good. I have a question.
Yep.
So, for stabilization, Tony, should I just turn it over to you, or what would you like me to say? Because there's all of that stuff about the 10% and what's recommended, and that we're going more, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there.
I'll be ready. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good feel about what questions will come up just because of the info sessions and, and the conversations that we have in our meetings since, January. So I'll just be ready to stand up and answer any question that comes in. I mean, I think that for the most part, what people are going to ask, if it was stabilization, what I'm going to be prepared to say is, what's the current balance? What's the balance after this vote? What can this account be used for? How much do we put in every year? Is this more or less than last year? Those are the types of questions you're going to get.
Right.
So, of course, someone could ask something random, and I've been trained by the best to say, we'll get you that answer after the meeting.
Tony, in one sentence, what would you say, what would you say the stabilization fund is for?
The stabilization, let's see, I can write something for you, but generally I would say the stabilization account is the town's rainy day fund. It's our savings account.
There we go.
It's
Thank
there
you.
for us.
Got it.
That's more
All
than
good.
one sentence.
Rainy day fund.
that does it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we go to motion 15. Judy?
I move that the sum of $100,000 is hereby appropriated for paving throughout town, including the payment of all incidental and related costs, and that this appropriation is funded from free cash.
Would that we could do paving throughout the town. I'm thinking about suing the city of Boston for the micro concussions I get for driving over the roads. And we've done a lot of rehabbing in our roads, so we have a few bumps of our own, and it would be great if everything was smooth. But at any rate, that was well read, and I think it speaks for itself. Article 16, Bob?
I move that the sum of $590.20 is hereby appropriated for the purpose of implementing the Transportation Infrastructure Enhancement Fund and that this appropriation is funded from the revenue transferred by the Commonwealth's Transportation Network Company Division to the town in fiscal year 2022. Is that really?
This one needs explanation. I mean, we know what it is because we've talked about it, but I think this is one that would have a little blurb.
Yeah, so I'll probably just lurk near the podium until after it's been seconded and you've,
And see if there's any question.
yeah.
Yeah, on the one hand, nobody knows what it's talking about, but on the other hand, it's only $590.
Exactly.
So I'm betting you won't get a question, but you might.
Right, that's what I mean. If somebody,
I'll have, like I said, in my binder, I'll have a background information. I can share that with you. Essentially, this actually doesn't come out of our revenues in the general fund or through property taxes or anything like that. What this is every Uber or Lyft that gets started in Nahant, we get a small percentage. I think it's like 10 cents a ride. It's 20 cents a ride. So for that year, but we're required by law to appropriate it. So we basically just take this small amount of money and appropriate it into,
But this allows us to spend it.
right, so we use this for traffic-related improvements. So it can be used for, painting a road, signage, anything related to roadway improvements, essentially.
and is it okay to say Commonwealth's? Or do we need to say Massachusetts or something more formal? That's okay?
That's the title of the division.
Okay. Article 17, Dan?
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $18 million to pay the costs of improvements to the Nahant sewer collection system, intending the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto,
Including the
including
payment, yep.
that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 8 of the General Laws, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore, that all or any portion of this amount may be obtained through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, the trust, that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to contract for and expend any federal or state aid available for the project, and to enter into any agreement with the trust of the Department of Environmental Protection of the Commonwealth that may be necessary in order to obtain assistance through the trust, and the Board of Selectmen is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
Good.
Wow, there is not enough punctuation in that. Wow.
Yeah, this bond council writes this one, so.
Wow.
Look at those two across, sitting over there.
Those are really, really specifically written.
Yeah.
And when you get into those, they wind up being these bizarre run-on sentences,
Yeah.
semicolons and commas, but there's a lot packed in there.
Yeah, and it's about $326.50 a word.
I agree.
I think it's important. I've always taken the position that we want our attorneys employed. We don't want them on the streets. It's dangerous enough out there on the streets. We keep the attorneys working someplace in a building someplace. That's good.
Your info section suggests that there's going to be a lot of controversy about this figure.
There really hasn't been a lot of discussion on this one. I don't know if that's because we, cut off questions before they're asked, because we spent a lot of time discussing it. Tom Simbro from Wright Pierce will be here on Saturday to answer any technical questions. So I'm not sure how this one, I expect all along, you know, as in our discussions, the FinCom, and myself and Allison, you know, all along, our guess on this one is gonna be, well, if this is to fund projects over the next 10 years, why not, you know, just borrow what you need for this upcoming year, and then come back again in the future for the next project and the next project? And, you know, that answer is gonna be, well, because we have a award by the DEP, by the State Revolving Fund, that we're, with this motion and approval, it signals to the DEP that we're committed to that amount. And we're concerned that if we don't, you know, that they could give away a portion or all of our award to another community. And they've had more, you know, applications this year than they've ever had, so.
And doesn't this lock us into the interest rate as well? I mean,
No.
It's a good, I'm gonna write that one down. That's a good question.
I mean, I think if it
believe
is.
the answer is yes.
If the answer is yes, that's, to me, that's the number one point. That it locks us into a low interest rate, especially with what's happening with interest rates today.
I'd imagine that,
What the rate is, right?
Right now, it's just over 2% for the Clean Water Trust. I'm not sure it locks in the interest rate, but they always get a lower interest rate than what you would get in the regular
Right.
market. I'm not sure it locks in.
Right, the benefit of using the trust.
Right.
Tony, what's the duration of this $18 million project? Are we looking at 8 years or is it 10?
For our capital plan says 8 to 10 years. You know, there's
Okay, so
projects.
we built in a little bit of flex
Yeah.
to execute.
But the borrowing is longer than that, right?
The borrowing will go for 30 years. And this won't, is not all going to be borrowed at once. It's going to be borrowed as we undertake each specific project. So that 30 years, it's going to be staggered, you know, for each project.
Is
I
it
think
correct?
that's a point
Is
for
it correct that we
clarity.
lock in the interest rate now for the full duration? So we get today's interest?
That's what I think Peter was
I
just
thought that was-
asking.
I
so
thought that
I'm
was
gonna
like the good part of
We'll
this.
look into that tomorrow, and make sure we have an answer for it at town
I
meeting.
think the key point too is to let people know this is like a construction loan, that we're only gonna borrow what we need at the time. And at the end, we may not need 18 million, but
But I think you also have to then consider, you'll have the question, how about all the money we've been borrowing for the last 2 years?
Right, yeah.
You described it well in that first bullet in your introductory letter, but I'm just not sure everyone reads that. Unfortunately, because, well,
Yeah, I have like a detailed PowerPoint. I have the info session PowerPoint. You know, I'll have those printed out. I could always pull them up onto the screen. That kind of explains, you know, our game plan for this borrowing. And I also have all that information, as Judy mentioned, you know, about the past and how we've utilized the previous borrowing amounts. So this one will probably, I assume we'll get some questions on this one. I think in September, when we had the special town meeting, you know, we had some questions about if we borrow this, are we still gonna try to go after grants and, you know, other sources of funding? You know, the answer to that is yes. However, you know, a lot of the funding that comes from the federal government down to the state for projects like water and sewer get filtered through this program. So this is kind of the grant opportunity for communities to take advantage of. So, you know, I think we should be able to answer any question, but that was a good one. I'll check on that too.
Is it strictly sewer? It's not part of the water supply issue?
This is just sewer. This is just sewer. And when we apply for the revolving fund, we actually have to submit the projects that we're attempting to use this money for. So the Ward Road Pump Station, Willow Road Force Main, Gravity II work, and the Causeway section of the force main are listed in that application, and that's what was awarded by DEP. And in fact, all those 4 projects ranked in the top 10 of all their applications that they received statewide. So, you know, DEP knows that we have these issues. DEP is supporting us by giving us this award of funding so that we can, you know, take them on over the next decade.
You know, we already have that nice little graphic on page 119 in here.
Yeah, it's in the, so I can refer to that for anybody in the audience. It's a good point.
Well, anybody who is interested should be reading the appropriate stuff that's available. But some people are more interested in hearing themselves speak than they are in actually what they're saying. So we'll have to deal with it in the usual way. Good. Well, that was good. That's a 2/3 vote because of the borrowing, absolutely. All right, motion, Article 18 is Dana Sheehan.
I move that the sum of $260,000 is hereby appropriated to purchase a dump truck and a loader, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and that this appropriation is funded from water and sewer retained earnings.
Great, great. Article 19, Dr. Brown.
I move that the sum of $500,000 is hereby appropriated to pay costs of repairing and/or replacing water distribution lines and appurtenant structures, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the town treasurer, with approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount through the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority or any other source under and pursuant to Massachusetts General Law C-44-8-5, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, and that in connection with any borrowing through the MWRA, the town is authorized to enter into a loan agreement and/or security agreement with the MWRA relative to such borrowing.
Right.
What is the
Section.
correct?
Section. So it's MGL
Chapter and
44.
section.
Chapter and section.
How do you pronounce the appurtenant?
Pertinent.
I said it right. Okay. Thank you.
So it's section 8, subsection 5, not section 8, 5. That is.
Really? Subsection 5. Boy, it gets tricky.
Another parentheses thing.
Good. All right.
I can spell that out for in the script that you have the day.
Might
of
be a
Saturday.
good idea. Yeah. And that's also borrowing, so it's a 2/3 vote. And then we go to the fire truck. And Barbara, you are on.
I move that the sum of $350,000 is hereby appropriated to purchase a fire truck and appurtenant fixtures costs, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the town treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow the sum of $350,000 under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 8.
Nope.
Is that correct? No.
Section 7 and 8.
Oh, okay.
There should be 2 sections.
Got it.
Section, so instead of that comma, you could read and.
Thank you. I'll write that in. Thank you very much.
Should actually be 2 squiggly lines there.
Yeah.
There should be, yeah.
That's very helpful, so we should just write in the and. Okay, under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. That was helpful, thank you.
That's why it's good that we're actually reading
Yep.
these motions, because.
You can't, there's no and there, so you don't know.
And
That's
it's
the
just- it's
nitty-gritty.
shorthand that, unfortunately, the lawyers, when we write these up, very often, we know what they look like, and then people are not used to reading these things, read them, and they just don't read well.
Yeah,
I'm putting the and in right now. Thank you.
absolutely. Okay, so, and
I'll
that's a
have-
two,
Barbara, I'm gonna spell all those out throughout the entire script, and we'll have multiple copies for all of you. So we'll fix that. You don't have to make it on your edit on your page. I'll have a fresh copy for you with it spelled out.
Okay, that would be helpful, but this was a good discussion, so got it now for future.
And those squiggly lines don't help anybody.
so, but section 7 and 8 are both required?
Yeah, different sections of the statute on borrowings.
Mm-hmm. But they're not alternative to each other in terms of giving authority to.
It gives, that's why it also has in any other enabling authority.
Good.
It gives a full range of options. for
Good,
borrowing.
good. All right. Number 21. Barbara, you're still on.
Oh, sorry. I move that the town raise and, here's a question. Should I say Chapter 90 Highway before I start?
You can, sure.
I should or shouldn't?
You can if you want, but I think the most important thing is to read the motion.
Right, I understand.
And
I'm
if you
just a-
read the motion, you're talking about accomplish certain highway construction
Right, I
and
understand.
maintenance.
I'm just
So it's
checking,
really not necessary, but if you want to, you can.
just checking for, what do you call it, parallel structure. I move that the town raise and appropriate from available funds received from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in fiscal year 2023 in order to accomplish certain highway construction and maintenance under the provisions of the general laws, Chapter 90, or other state transportation programs.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a standard every year, Chapter 90. So I wouldn't be adverse to you saying Chapter 90 highway, because the people who are here every year would know what you're talking about. But you actually say it in the motion, so if you don't feel like you have to say it, just read the motion's good. All right, now we come to the community preservation. That's all right, no problem. So we come to community preservation, and so the FinCom is going to read the motions, as I understand it, for all those. So Julie, you are up for 22A. And I would just say one other thing, that Lynn is going to give a very brief description of what can be done with these motions. The statute is restrictive. You can pass it, you can defeat it, but that's it. You can't amend it, you can't postpone it, you can't refer it to committee, you can't do any of that other stuff. So she's just going to mention that because it may come up in connection with the one of these that you guys didn't recommend. So I don't know how that's going to work, but anyways, so before you read that, I told her she could get up and just make a very quick explanation of what this is about and what can be done, and then you'll be given the floor.
Okey-doke. I move that the sum of $10,000 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 Community Preservation Fund estimated revenues for administrative and operating expenses of the Community Preservation Committee.
Right? But you don't get off that easy. How about number 22B?
I move that the sum of $18,464 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for document conservation and digitization of historic Johnson School records now in the care of the Nahant Historical Society, consistent with the application for CPA funding by the Nahant Historical Society, including all incidental and related costs.
Aha, and who better to read that than one of the incidental costs?
Is that okay? Is that okay?
Is that okay?
I think it's good.
Julie works for the Historical Society and submitted this application to the CPC. Is it okay?
No conflict.
I mean, it was approved by the CPC.
And it's approved by the FinCom. There's no conflict.
But is appearances better if Julie didn't read it?
If there's a concern,
Yeah, no, I
There's lots of us, so we can, we can.
Now, why don't we just pick someone else, Julie, if you don't mind?
No, I don't mind at all. It makes sense to me.
I'll read it.
well, let me just say this.
Dana's got that one.
Yeah.
Dana?
I'll do it, and then if you want to take the boat room doors, Julie?
Sure, oh, yeah, because,
We'll switch.
we'll switch our conflicts.
Okay, but let me just say, I don't think it's a conflict, and if somebody has a question on it and a detail on it, who better to explain it than Julie? And I think that certainly would not be a conflict, because it just explains what has been considered by the Conservation Committee and also by the FinCom in putting this thing before the House. So don't hesitate if somebody has a question, then I think you should be able to answer it.
Dave, were you saying that it's okay for Julie to read it, there's no conflict?
I don't think so, but if there's a concern by our town council, then why not switch it?
Right.
But I'm just saying, she knows the details of that better than anybody on the planet. So if there's a question, there's nothing wrong with her explaining the
Why
answer.
don't you just read it then?
No, I
Just
don't, I can answer the
Have you
questions.
not been
You
able
read
to
it,
hear me?
and I'll answer the doors.
Because I wouldn't have much to say about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
I wouldn't know the details. the
That's
technical-
okay.
But you read the motion.
So Dana, you read the motion.
All right.
If there's any questions, Julie can answer them.
That's it.
And then we'll have Julie read motion 22C.
About the vote, the
And if there's any
life-saving vote
questions,
doors.
if there's any questions, you can answer those.
That sounds good. Fair.
There you go.
Sure.
All right, Julie, so you want to read 22C?
Sorry, 22. I move that the sum of $64,000 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for the replication of the 2 pairs of boat room doors facing Short Beach in the Nahant Life Saving Station, consistent with the application for CPA funding by the Nahant Preservation Trust, including all incidental and related costs.
So
There
it
we go.
includes the replication of the doors, but not the hanging of the doors?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
The question is, does it includes the creation of the doors, but not the hanging or the installation of the doors?
It's the
I
whole
think
thing.
Dana's going to answer that one.
It's the whole thing, replacing them, fixing the frames.
That would be the incidental and related costs.
Yeah, it's a whole enchilada.
Replication
All
of
right,
the
I
door
mean,
itself.
I'd ask that question. If I was on the floor, I'd ask that question.
No, those are interesting questions, because I have a sense that somebody in the town meeting might have a question about the price, because it seems pretty
Aye.
high, but, you know, it's been approved by us and others, so.
Okay.
Good. Okay, 22D, Dana.
Okay. I move that the sum of $40,000 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for modifying both Cliff Street entrances of the Nahant Village Church in order to make the church universally accessible to the public, including all incidental and related costs.
Sounds good. 22E, also you, Dana. Wow, you got a lot of these.
So there's a question on this.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't recommend, right?
So on the next article, the Finance Committee voted to not recommend. So we weren't sure how you wanted to proceed as to how you wanted to read this motion. You have a couple different options. You can read it in the affirmative, and then, for those of you that voted to not recommend it, you could stand up and during the discussion phase, talk about why, if you wanted to make that statement. If you go that road, I would suggest that somebody who voted against the vote to not recommend, in other words, somebody who was in favor of the article, should probably read an affirmative motion. It wouldn't make sense for somebody who voted to not recommend during your process to then stand up and read the affirmative motion. So if you go with an affirmative motion, whoever voted no at the time that the FinCom voted to not recommend should be, I'll put that, I don't know who it was, I forget how it ended up, but that's how it would go. The other option would be to read it to indefinitely postpone or take no action or dismiss.
Or the other option would be to let somebody from the CDC read a positive motion. So-
Or someone, or Lynn, if the FinCom, would prefer, somebody from the CPC could actually read this motion.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So,
Let them do that, and let's find out someone in the audience to second it.
So the question I have is, it depends really on the feeling of the FinCom. If you're actually opposed to it and opposed to spending the money on it and you want to defeat it, that's one thing, and that would be probably a motion to indefinitely postpone. But if you just don't think, in your judgment, it's worth spending, but you're not opposed to the CPC spending the money that they already have in doing that, then maybe we should let the CPC make a positive article, and you could explain why you don't think it's worthwhile, and let the people make a decision. It depends on what you're doing, if you're actually opposed to it, or if you just don't support it, and those are two different
So
positions.
what would the motion be? If the
So-
committee voted to not recommend, would we say vote to take no action or definitely postpone?
Or we don't make the motion at all. Let CPC make the motion, let someone on the floor make a second, and during discussion, someone stand up from the Finance Committee and say, we don't recommend this because.
Right, so the answer, Dana, if you were to read the motion in opposition, it would just be, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 22E.
And if I understand it, the way that would proceed is the indefinite postpone is the motion on the floor. That would have to be defeated.
Right, and I'll explain that, so it's not a big deal, yeah.
If and when it's defeated, then presumably the CPC would stand up and make their own motion.
Yeah, whoever defeats it would have the opportunity to get up and make a motion, or they can, yeah, but again, I think the point I'm making is it the committee's view that it shouldn't be done, or is it the committee's view that you just don't think it should be supported? If you're against it, then motion to indefinitely postpone is where you want to go. And you might want to talk to somebody from CPC and see where they're coming on it. One option would be to just, as I say, let someone from CPC make a motion and then speak against it, or explain why it wasn't supported. But, it's really up to you guys, so.
So this kind of brings up an issue from the last meeting where we had the articles on the screen when we took our clicker votes.
Right.
Some concern about whether it should be the article or the actual motion as read. I don't know if that's been addressed in some manner or.
You always vote on, the article is the warning to the voters.
Yeah.
The motion is the action.
Right.
So the question
And
was,
this you would have to create, someone would have to type in this
Yeah.
this motion.
so the question
See what
was,
they're voting on.
Yeah.
the question that came from one of the residents that I've spoken with since last town meeting and explained it,
Yeah.
was, could the motion be on the screen with the warrant article? There's two concerns. Logistics of the fact that we have to send the articles to the clicker person. That's not a real title, but, we sent it to her 2 weeks ago. As soon as the warrant got finalized, we sent it to her. She starts creating the file that she actually projects on the screen. The motions, even tonight, we're making final changes. And then the day of, things, could change on the floor.
Yeah.
And she is the controller of the projector screen. So, whereas the motion is the holy grail, so to speak, it's a little uncomfortable putting it in her hands to make those changes. And then the other thing is if you got up and read a motion and it's not word for word of what's on the screen, but it's fine. If you said section 7 and 8, but on the screen it said section 7 and section 8. Now you have kind of a conflict with what people are seeing and what you're saying. So to avoid all that, we've basically decided we're going to stick to the normal, just put the warrant article on the screen and read the motion.
Yep. It's the motion. We'll explain that. It's the motion that is really important, and it may differ.
Motion as read.
It may differ from the language that is in the warrant by itself. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
But what do we want to
Okay.
do about
Okay,
this?
so Finance Committee, what is our pleasure here with this 22F?
I recommend CPC reads the motion.
On the other hand, I don't mind reading a motion to indefinitely postpone it. I don't mind reading a motion to indefinitely postpone it either, so what does everybody else think?
We take a vote
I
on
think
it?
we should have a vote, or a motion and a
As I
second.
recall, this was not a unanimous.
It was not a unanimous vote.
Right.
6-3.
Yeah, we voted 6-3.
3 again.
So,
Maybe indefinitely postponed does make sense in that case.
It seems pretty simple.
but I don't, because it wasn't a unanimous decision,
Right. You're
I-
making a decision.
by us going up and saying that we recommend it, it sounds like we made a decision together, that we agree, and we don't. So in
Right.
this way, I recommend, I make a motion that we allow CPC to read the motion,
Second it.
and then during discussion, anyone in the FinCom that was not for it has a right to stand up and say why.
Take a vote.
All right, so we have a motion and a
Motion
second.
seconded. Still,
Please
to have
clarify what the motion is right
The
now.
motion is to have CPC read the motion.
A motion, yeah,
A motion?
to make the motion.
Then should one of us speak up and explain why we denied approval or why we didn't,
Right.
failed to recommend?
Yes.
Should we identify that person?
I think that could follow. Do we have to put that in the motion?
I don't think you,
No, that's, I don't think that's really germane to.
But if you mean just in how it executes, the CPC would read the motion, someone on the floor would second it, and then there'd be discussion, which allows anybody in the room to get up and say if they're for or against.
Right, but
I think it's important, though, that it not be stated that we were unanimous on this. It should not appear that way because we weren't. You see what I'm trying to say?
I think that'll be part of the discussion.
yeah. So
You're fragmenting your democracy.
it sounds
I'm just saying,
All right, so if we
There's a
may,
motion on the floor.
let's vote on the motion, and then we can follow that with a short discussion about,
So the motion is to have the CPC read a motion regarding 22E. So Barba? Beatty?
aye.
Brown?
Aye.
McMacken?
Aye.
Sheehan?
No.
Vanderslice?
aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Zahora?
Aye.
Tarmy? Aye. So that's 8 ayes and 1 no.
Now, what happens if the CPC says, no, I ain't gonna read no motion? We'll have to,
I have a feeling they'll be willing to read.
I have so too, I think.
the
So. If they want to
chances are
spend the money,
slim.
that's good. All
So,
right,
Dave, after the CPC's motion and second, it sounds like we will have somebody in the vicinity of the microphone that,
we'll just call for further discussion. It'll be open for discussion.
Yeah,
And
so
I tend to, I tend to call on people who've put effort into getting the town meeting together. So you guys, town administrator, the selectmen, and other people who have worked on it, I think they get first dibs on saying whatever they say. So
and then Finance
we'll take care of
Committee,
it.
on Saturday morning, we'll figure out amongst ourselves who will speak.
I think somebody should let the people in the audience know that the FinCom assessed it and voted not to recommend it.
Right.
Yeah, and
that's-
explain it.
that's
And I
what
don't think that we have to fragment the FinCom into the way it was voted.
I agree.
I mean, call out, I agree.
You know,
Yeah, it's,
We won't call out names. Voted not to recommend, blah, blah,
and then we can pick among ourselves somebody to speak about. But I think the person should speak as a member of FinCom, not as a member of the audience.
Yes.
No, I don't agree with that. If the person who speaks as FinCom, other than saying that as FinCom, we didn't come to a unanimous decision, but if that person has a burning desire that this is for or against, then they can't speak for FinCom in that way. We didn't come to that decision.
Okay. Well, the FinCom voted not to recommend.
Right.
Correct.
And that's,
So I think you can certainly speak as a citizen, but not the voice of FinCom, because we didn't come to that decision.
Well, they could represent that the FinCom, by majority vote of 6-3, recommended not to proceed with this plan.
Yes, they can say that for sure.
and you get somebody to explain why that was, or something like that. Yeah, I think the FinCom doesn't stop, members of the FinCom don't stop being citizens by being on the FinCom. And I remember when I was on the FinCom, I actually spoke against the pooper scooper law on the grounds that I felt that our children should learn to watch where they're stepping, among other things. I actually defeated it, but I spoke as a dissent to the position that was on.
It is an important life skill, isn't it?
Huh?
It is an important life skill.
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting time. Anyway, so you're still citizens and you can still talk. All right, let's go to 22F. I think from here it's a clear sailing. Dana?
I move that the sum of $45,167 is hereby appropriated from the fiscal year 2023 Community Preservation estimated revenues, and the sum of $29,833 is appropriated from the Community Housing Reserve to provide professional technical assistance to support the town with understanding housing needs, establishing housing goals, and identifying housing strategies which may include development of a housing production plan or other strategy, including all incidental and related costs.
Seconded by such and so, majority vote, good. Oh, you get the next one too. 22G.
That'd be me again. I move the sum of $100,000 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for acoustic and lighting improvements in the assembly room of Nahant Town Hall, consistent with the application of CPA funding by the town of Nahant, including all costs incidental or related thereto.
I hope that our system is good enough so people will be able to hear that motion be made, or otherwise.
Kind of like they do at Fenway Park. Move.
All right.
That one doesn't pass.
You might stand up and say, we want air conditioning too.
That was great.
All right, 22H. Julie?
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $350,000 to pay the costs for the preservation of the two historic town-owned structures. The Town Hall, located at 334 Nahant Road, and the Green Lawn Cemetery, located at 195 Nahant Road, consistent with the town's application for CPA funding, including the payment of all incidental and related costs. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow the sum of $350,000 under General Laws, Chapter 44B, General Laws, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to apply for, accept, and expend any monies that may be available to the town for such purposes from any public or private source. And further, that $20,160 is appropriated from fiscal year 2023's community preservation estimated revenue, and $34,790 is appropriated from community preservation general reserves to pay debt service, principal and interest, on the first year of the borrowing.
Excellent. And the fact that you said section 7 and 8 may qualify you for taking the bar exam. Yeah.
Can I ask a question on this one to the attorneys? This CPC application included work on the library. In the motion, it just says Nahant Town Hall and the cemetery. Is it?
Yeah, it says it right there.
Right.
In the article.
And it's
Right.
similar to the article. But we do want to include the library, and that is consistent with the application that we submitted with the CPA, but it was left out of the article. Would it be out of order to add the library to the motion? Because it's not listed in the article?
Friendly amendment.
Buildings, and they identify the two buildings, so it seems to me that
Might be a problem.
What's interesting, though, I'll just throw this out, is there's a reference to the state public library bond program.
Right, and the application that we submitted to the CPC referenced work that's occurring at the library.
Yeah, the application obviously is not before a town meeting, and I think, as Dan mentioned, it talks about two buildings.
Well, it says consistent, the reason I mention that is because in the motion, it
Let's say
says
consistent with the
consistent with the town's application.
Right, but what I'm looking for is a hook. Obviously, the moderator makes the call on scope, but there is a reference to the state library bond program, which only applies to libraries. So there's a suggestion there that a library is mentioned, so town meeting is warned that something's going on with the library, but then it goes on to talk about the town hall located and Green Lawn Cemetery located, and it does not go on to talk about the library building. So it's a little bit of a stretch, but ultimately the moderator makes the call.
At the very least, it's an explanation.
Yeah.
In the warrant, it's on page, one library's in there.
But only with respect to the
Bond program.
the library bond program.
And it does, I was looking for in the warrant, it does say the 2 historic town-owned structures.
Yeah, and just, this is a nit, but should we strike the word "the 2 historic"? Because that
So-
implies that there are only 2 historic structures in town, so it really should just read "of 2 historic structures."
Well, what I'm worried about is the state. If we, so we could say that the 2 historic town-owned structures are the town hall and the library.
The worry I have is because this is a borrowing,
Yeah,
you know, we do have a higher level of scrutiny. So it's unfortunately, you know, there's the reference to the state library bond program, but then there's a reference to the 2 historic buildings. And I get that point. But it's a little bit of a stretch. You might want to have a conversation. I don't know if bond counsel helped you with this motion. Bond counsel may be concerned about whether this article gave proper warning, and their take on motion. I might try harder to make it work. Bond counsel has to sell the bonds and has to be convinced that the voters were properly warned of what they were going to be voting on. That being said, sometimes bond counsel lately, I've actually experienced more flexibility. So
How much flexibility do you have with like a friendly amendment offered on the floor?
We
still
can't,
has to be within the scope.
Still has to be within.
Does not, yeah.
I thought CBC was only yes or no.
Well, CPC approved
That's
an
a good
application
point.
that included the library.
But this is, no.
Show up in the motion. In the article.
But you can't make an amendment to a CPC article.
Can that be explained on the floor?
Well, it's not so much the explanation, because it's easy to explain that, hey, you could say it about anything. We forgot to put library in there. But the problem is, my rule of thumb in looking at scope of the article questions, I use the fuzzy slippers rule. If you were sitting at home on the day of town meeting with your fuzzy slippers on, relaxing in front of the TV, watching whatever sports you want, and you were comfortable, they're only going to vote on those 2 buildings, and they're not doing anything else, I can stay at home. And then suddenly you find out the next day, they also threw in the library, and you think, I didn't want the library touched, or I didn't want to go that far with my borrowing. I would have taken off my slippers, put on my running shoes, run down to town hall and attended the town meeting and voted against it. So I always think about that. Is that person properly warned that matter is in play? So we could explain it at town hall, at town meeting, but the person at home is not going to hear that explanation. They read the warrant and they were comfortable with exactly what they were warned of. Now, again, as we're talking about, the motion doesn't have to be exactly as stated in the article, but it has to be within the scope, so it has to touch on things. That's why if we have raise and appropriate, transfer or borrow, we can pick and choose amongst that. If we listed options, we could pick and choose among the options. We can't throw a new variable in that wasn't in the article to begin with.
it wasn't fairly in the article to begin with. And what I would say is, how about, who's bond counsel on this?
But it's also not in the supporting statement from CPC.
Oh, she's my old firm.
Is that what you do, Rick Manley?
But isn't the risk,
Oh, Peter Frazier. No, not Rick, yeah, Peter Frazier.
No,
But-
he's not bond counsel, but we go through him.
Okay, yeah, he's your financial advisor.
I mean, if you're looking for a recommendation or a vote, the recommendation of the supporting statement in CPC does not mention the library.
Yeah,
There's like 4 paragraphs that don't mention the library.
The
Right.
application, interesting, the application apparently did, but again, like I said, the reference to the application alone doesn't leverage the library into it. It's not, the only leverage that I can see is the reference to the state library bond program, but it's still, we see it, so that reference to the two buildings, we have the two
Yeah.
buildings specified. It's,
Sounds
Wait,
like
so-
too much of a stretch.
Well, let's, so who wrote this?
CPC.
They didn't add the library, and I wouldn't recommend going with the library.
Isn't our risk here scrutiny by bond counsel? Is that what we're worried about? Can't we handle that with a friendly amendment? The guy in the slippers, we don't care, he's too lazy to show up.
well,
That's not the way, no.
bond counsel worries about that guy, and I have to defer to bond counsel because bond counsel is the one that undertakes the whole sale of the bonds, and they scrutinize it even more strictly than we do, and even more strictly than the guy in the slippers.
At this 11th hour, what choices do we have besides friendly amendment? Tack
We
it
gotta
on.
ch-
Well, no, the question
Do a friendly amendment to CPC. It's either yes or no.
Can I,
Bond counsel and see what they say.
I want to talk to bond counsel or whoever tomorrow. Let's not take any irretrievable positions tonight until I have a chance to think about this and run it past bond counsel and see whether there's some way that we can deal with it. I understand the concern and the bit of confusion because this wasn't well written, but there's something there, and whether we can rely on that or not, I think depends on whether bond counsel, what the feelings are, and I'd like to think about it and discuss it with them. And I also have a lot of resources for dealing with scope issues among other moderators in the Massachusetts Moderators Association. So Tony, why don't we talk to whoever we can talk to tomorrow? And
I'll also-
include me.
So, the reason for this is, last year we had a similar article, the same CPC application. It was approved. We went out to bid. We prioritized work on the library and the town hall. The bid came back and exceeded our funding amount. So we were able to award the base bid. They're holding the price on the alternative, 2, 3, and 4. And so we're coming back to town floor to ask for more funding so we can award alternative
2, 3, and 4.
So
And 2, 3, and 4 all involve the library? One of them involves the library?
one of them involves the library. So
Well, we may be doing that next year.
If I can look at, Allison and I will sit down, review the bids. You know, if it's possible that all of the library work, if this were to be approved,
Yeah.
all the library work could be paid out of last year's borrowing,
Oh,
which included the library.
yeah,
I could do it that way. So
Right.
that might be an option as well.
good.
Well,
I like that,
back
the
to the
sound of
drawing
that very much, yeah. Good. All right, well, let's talk about it tomorrow sometime, morning, whatever. Good. All right, we'll fix it. We'll figure out what to do and do it right. And the poor fellow in the fuzzy slippers is somebody we all worry about. So, for example, if instead of, so let's say that the article was written, the article in the warrant was written exactly the same as this, all right? But at town hall, the motion is, at the town hall meeting, somebody makes the motion, and instead of the library, they say Northeastern's Witchamajigger and East Point. The guy in the fuzzy slippers, he would leave tracks all the way down from his house to whatever, or to whoever it was that read the motion, and probably have his fingers around that. So, you know, it depends on what's going on in it. The fuzzy slippers are important. All right, let's move on. 22I, Julie.
I move that the sum of $60,000 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for the planning, upgrade, and replacement of the Little Nahant Short Beach Playground, $40,000, and for planning the restoration of the 5 additional playgrounds in Nahant, $20,000, including all costs incidental or related thereto.
Excellent, excellent, okay. 20, and that's a majority. The Town Hall Green Lawn Cemetery Preservation thing, I forgot to mention, is 2/3 vote. All right, 22J.
J.
Dana.
I move that the sum of $25,000 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for the removal of invasive species and pathway restoration on Bailey's Hill as requested by the town of Nahant, including all costs incidental and related thereto.
Very good, majority vote.
Nicely read on invasive species.
Did you like the drama there? Okay.
Very nicely done.
I move that the sum of $4,500 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for the preparation of a blueprint plan with best practices, principles, and strategies to ensure the maintenance and sustainability of 2 Nahant parks located at East Point, Nahant, including all costs incidental and related thereto.
Again, the majority vote. 22L, Julie.
I move that the sum of $7,500 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for the restoration work on the flagpole located outside Town Hall, consistent with the application for CPA funding by the town of Nahant, including all costs incidental or related thereto.
Great, majority view. While you're at it, 22M.
I move that the sum of $45,879 is hereby appropriated from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues, and the sum of $24,121 is appropriated from Community Preservation Fund General Reserves for payment of the debt service for the public library bonding authorized by the 2021 annual town meeting, Article 21E.
Great, that's a majority, I think, because we're just paying debt service.
Correct.
22N, Dana.
I move that the sum of $51,695 is hereby appropriated from Community Preservation Fund General Reserves for the payment of the debt service for the public library bonding authorized by the 2019 annual town meeting article 16C.
Great. Majority vote. 22O.
Just 1 second before you move forward. Going back to 22K, Dana,
Hey, yeah,
I might strike the word blueprint from that, where it just says preparation of a plan instead of a blueprint plan. A little bit more general.
Strike blueprint?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to update that in the edits? All right, thanks.
makes sense.
No, I can grab a chair. Where are you on this?
22O.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello, welcome back.
You missed all the fun.
Unexpected fun? Oh, God, I missed all the good parts.
You did.
The easy part of the story.
Okay, so I think we should go through the rest of these, and then we should go back and talk about the one article where we're looking for a motion. So 22O,
I move that the town close $9,529.71, which is the unexpended fund balance in the wharf seawall project authorized in Article 21E of the 2013 town meeting. Wow. And to transfer the $9,529.71 to the Community Preservation General Reserves.
that's good, majority vote. 22,
I move that the town close $23.75, which is the unexpended fund balance in the building department permitting software project authorized in Article 28M of the 2015 town meeting, and to transfer the $23.75 to the Community Preservation General.
I think that'll probably not run into any interference, so that would be good. And it's a majority vote. Julie, 22Q.
I move that the town close $383.97, which is the unexpended fund balance in the Town Hall Records Preservation Project, authorized in Article 33K of the 2017 town meeting, and to transfer the $383.97 to the Community Preservation General Reserve.
That's majority vote. 22R. Dana.
I move that the town close $698, which is the unexpended fund balance in the wharf gangway project, authorized in Article 25J of the 2018 town meeting, and to transfer the $698 to the Community Preservation General Reserves.
Majority vote. 22S.
I move that the town close $3,140.12, which is the unexpended fund balance in the Tudor Beach Stairs project, authorized in Article 16H of the 2019 town meeting, and to transfer the $3,140.12 to the Community Preservation General Reserves.
Majority vote. And 22T. Dana.
Okay. I move that the town set aside revenues from fiscal year 23 estimated Community Preservation Fund revenues for later appropriation, any amount not otherwise set aside or appropriated as aforesaid, to be maintained in the Community Preservation Fund General Reserves account.
And that's a majority vote. Is that our standard? That's what we did last year as well.
Is there any way that we can combine all of the callbacks? One vote for all of them?
We were just talking about that too.
What's that?
Whether you want to take all those together, because we have a lot of those.
I know, those, but each one of them has to be probably explained in the same way that they're doing it. I don't think there's going to be anybody voting against any one of them. But how do you do it as a grand? Did we? Well, if we can work it up, that'd be fine. But I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it this way either.
I think the only reason was to speed things up.
Yeah, yeah.
And make it more compact, because I think that looking at the articles, you're transferring the specific dollar amount to the fund.
So I move that the following amounts be transferred to the fund, blah.
Well, the question is whether
2375, which is such and so of a town meeting, blah, blah.
whether these are essentially movable as written in the warrant.
But they're also moving to close the account.
Yeah, Allison may have a concern with lumping them. Would you rather not do that?
All right, well,
Just because they are, for each of these is set up as a specific project in the general ledger.
Well, that's why I was looking at the articles, the motions kind of expand on that. And so that's why I was trying to think if there's a way to do it, other than reading it all together. I mean, you could take all these motions, mash them into one big motion, and read it all together. But I don't know if that's gonna save anything.
I think that'd blow some fuzzy slippers off, that is
Yeah,
true.
and it would also, I mean, we even be confusing the folks sitting in the audience, so.
Yeah.
I mean, a thought in the future would be whether, whether to do something like this in like a chart form or something else. But as we have it right now, it may cause more confusion. We're trying to speed things up, and we may actually wind up with the opposite impact.
And I submit we can do it quickly, too. I mean, we can read it quickly, right through.
I think the electronic voting is going to speed things up enough that.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I think
But
this,
I see the point.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
good.
But next year, if we have the same thing, I'll take his suggestion, I could put it in a chart, and then you could just say, as referenced in the warrant, and then you wouldn't have to walk through all that.
Okay.
That'd be great.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
To do that
I'll
for
do
me?
that then.
Thank you. I'd love that. I'm going on record there.
So Lynn, with regard to motion for 22F,
Yeah.
as you know, the FinCom voted against support of that. And the question then arose as to how that should be presented for town meeting. I think the FinCom voted to say that somebody from your organization should make a motion.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, where are we? Where did we go? Where am I? Hey. 23, property tax exemptions. All right, Dana?
Just for the record, Dave, that was 22E, not 22F.
Oh, sorry. With the, somebody, I love green, it's my but, all right.
Historical matter.
Yeah, okay. All right, 23, Dana.
I move that the town approve an increase of $250 for property tax exemptions granted to those qualifying under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, beginning in fiscal year 2023, with the new maximum exemption amounts being as printed in the article.
All right. So that's a majority vote. Barbara, 24?
I move that the sum of $125,000 is hereby appropriated to fund a feasibility study related to the replacement of or upgrades to the existing fire and police stations, including the payment of all incidental and related costs, and that this appropriation is funded from free cash.
Majority vote. 25, Bob?
I move the town accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 32, Section 4, Paragraph 2B and a half, pertaining to call firefighters' participation in the state employment retirement system.
You got a majority vote. Is that controversial, I think, Tony? That shouldn't be controversial, I don't think.
I don't think so.
No. Speaking of controversial, 26.
I move that the town amend section 13, control of dogs, of the police bylaw, as printed in the warrant and appendix 7 of the advisory and finance committee report.
Very good. I don't know about that. That's just mentioning Doggy Beach is enough to set off a mushroom cloud in various places. But this seems to be trying to protect the residents of the beach over there And so maybe it'll be help. I'll never forget when they first put up their opposition to the whole thing. And they took a video at 5 o'clock in the morning. And they're taking it out their bedroom window. And it's, Fido! Fido! No, Fido! No, no!
Will you do that at town meeting?
Sure. I hope Fido doesn't show up. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so that's interesting. Well, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. All right, Bob, 27.
27, I move that the town vote pursuant to the general laws, Chapter 43B, Section 10, to amend Section 4-4 of the Town Charter, Board of Appeals, to increase the size of the board from 3 to 5 members by deleting the text of said section and inserting in place thereof the following. A, composition term of office. There shall be a Board of Appeals consisting of 5 regular members appointed by the Board of Selectmen for 3-year overlapping terms, so that the terms of an equal number of members as nearly as possible expire each year. And 3 associate members appointed by the Board of Selectmen for 3-year overlapping terms, so that the term of office of 1 member expires each year. And further, following the vote at the 2023 town election regarding this amendment to the charter and the effective date of such amendment, to authorize the select board to appoint 1 new member for a 2-year term and 1 new member for a 3-year term.
Gee, you read a lot more into it than I see there, you know?
Yeah, that was our fault. And one quick correction, Dan just pointed out, because it was a carryover. It should in that paragraph A where it says second line appointed by the Board of Selectmen, it should be for 5-year overlapping terms. The 3 was like a carryover because we're going from 3 to 5. So that should be changed to 5. The reason this grew in the telling, Mr. Moderator, is because we wanted to make clear the process for folks coming in with the appointment to make sure that you have the staggered terms. And the concern was that was not clear as you're bringing on new folks. And also to make clear that this follows the 2023 town election, because since it's a charter change, it's voted by a 2/3 vote of town meeting, and then it goes to the ballot, and then it becomes effective after that.
Mhm.
And it's also subject to review by the Attorney General.
Okay, do we have another copy of it as it?
Yes, sorry, you have that.
Oh, it's in the,
Came in like an hour after I sent you that version that you.
okay, all right.
Thinking of it, is that staggered?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, Dan, I think we're actually wrong about that. They have 3-year terms, even though they're 5 of them. I'm sorry, that wasn't actually correct. Because we're not going to do 5-year terms.
It's correct as written.
Correct as written, and,
Correct as written, sorry.
and Dan, being probably more familiar with the zoning bylaw, that's consistent 3-year terms with the zoning bylaw?
Yeah, there are 3-year terms, absolutely.
Yeah, you don't have 5-year terms.
No, we don't.
Okay.
One concern I do have is that there is a member of the ZBA that is sort of suggesting that he'll make an amendment on the floor, looking to just...
Can you speak up, Dan?
Sorry. There is some talk about one ZBA member trying to make a motion on the floor, suggesting that we just erase all reference to any number of members in the charter, okay, and leave it to the bylaws to define that. I don't know if that's coming or not, but I was told it 2 months ago. I was told that he was thinking about it. I reached out to him last week. He never got back to me. But if we do get it, I think the discussion is going to be is
I don't think it is. It would simplify things, but it would simplify things in a way that the fuzzy slippers would fall off. Because somebody's saying, well, they're going to do this, and they're going to do this, and zoning is something that's near and dear to everybody's fuzzy slippers. That's the way it is.
The problem also is, there's a big difference between amending the charter and amending a bylaw. You amend the charter, you're kind of putting it in stone,
Right.
that's why it's going out to the voters at the ballot. If you then left it to the bylaw, it could flip by vote at town meeting, and you know, not that you anticipate it's gonna get changed all the time, but it's more susceptible to change. Your charter obviously has a higher authority than your bylaws.
That's right. So, yeah. So I think that would be out of order.
Okay, good, there you go. Now we know. I'll pass it on to them.
Well,
This motion is written as...
As written is correct, yeah, that, we just got. Yeah, overthinking.
Okay, Article 28 is, Peter.
I move that the town amend Article 16 of Nahant's bylaws, Stormwater Bylaw, as printed in Appendix 10 of the Advisory and Finance Committee report.
And that's a majority vote. By the way, the zoning board of appeals thing is a 2/3 vote for sure.
Oh, yeah, it's 2/3.
Anything doing with zoning.
That goes to the Attorney General within 4 weeks, and it comes back to the ballot. So it doesn't take effect until, once a year.
Good. Okay. Motion 29, Judy?
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $500,000 to pay the cost to fund the capital costs of projects related to climate change preparedness, including the payment of all incidental and related costs. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow the sum of $500,000 under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-8, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. That the Board of Selectmen is authorized to apply for, accept, and expend any monies that may be available to the town for such purposes from any public or private source.
Very nice, very good. 2/3 vote. And close. Peter.
Sorry, my glasses are steaming up. I move that the sum of $550,000 is hereby appropriated to fund drainage improvements in the lowlands neighborhood, generally consisting of Castle Road, Fox Hill Road, and Ward Road, including, but not limited to, improvements to existing infrastructure of drainage ditches, stormwater pipes, and outfalls, as well as development of infrastructure to improve drainage, including the payment of all costs incidental or relative thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the town treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore.
Very good. 2/3 vote on the borrowing. And this is to head off the citizen petition thing, which is Article 31.
So if Article 30 passes, the citizen petition is likely to be
Dropped. Mhm.
So I just have there, I move to indefinitely postpone or dismiss or.
Is that something that we do, or because Christine Lucio?
It would be the Christine Licio, a member of the petition.
Yeah. Well, she may want to just accept, withdraw the citizen petition.
You can't really withdraw. The article needs to be acted upon. It belongs to the voters.
I'm s-
Need to take a vote to.
Motion to definitely.
Yeah, be motion to definitely postpone. Okay, good. Article 32, Dan. This is going to test your ability late at night to read
I move that the town continue the following standing committees to June 30th, 2023. Community Preservation Committee, Cable TV Advisory Committee, Veterans Memorial Committee, Sailing Committee, Cemetery Advisory Committee, Coast Guard Design and Development Advisory Committee, Town Charter and Bylaw Committee, Tennis Committee, Town-Owned Land Study Committee, Nahant Alternative Energy Committee, Golf Course Management Advisory Committee, and the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee, Cultural Council FEMA Flood Insurance Study Committee, Green Community Committee, MVP Committee, Noise Abatement Committee, Nahant Fire Station Architectural Assessment Committee, Short-Term Rental Committee.
Excellent. Well done. You could have done that with marbles in your mouth, I have a feeling. That's great. I think this was really, it's the first time we've actually gone through and read every article per se, but I think it was worthwhile doing that. We found some knickknacks and meshacks and Abednegos in there someplace. So I think this was well worthwhile everybody's efforts tonight, and I really appreciate you coming and spending the time on this. And I think it'll be helpful to us at town meeting. Yes?
I have one question, and that is, am I correct that we never say the word recommended? Because as I recall in the past, I mean, we'll say in the book, right? It's written in bold, recommended. But as I recall in the past, we sometimes would say that. Do we not say that anymore? Is that?
You can say it in a discussion of the thing, but the article is to move, to do something that's consistent with the article in the warrant.
I understand that, so I'm just getting a clarification about what is the kind of parallel structure for how we would proceed.
The role of the finance committee in the discussion?
Yes.
You know, as Mara indicates, the motion is moved and it moves the action. Somebody from the finance committee can certainly say the finance committee recommended.
Yeah, this is why we recommended, or this is what we recommended, or you can discuss
What I'm
it.
asking here, and that's why we're having this dress rehearsal, is that something that the finance committee thinks we should do or not?
No, I mean, I'm not opposed, but it says in the book.
I know.
That we've recommended. So I think as long as, if anybody wants to get up and repeat what's in the book, but I don't see any value to that.
So I was just asking us.
If you're gonna say something, if you're gonna make the motion, you know, get the second, and then start the discussion, I think you would say, you know, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends this because, or, you know, I mean.
Exactly.
I don't think it makes a difference whether you say it or not. It's in there, but it may add a little bit more, I don't know.
Do you think that?
But it's not read nor said as part of reading the motion itself.
I understand,
but
that's what I wanted to have totally clarified.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about this Saturday morning again, but it's kind of then optional-ish?
I don't know that there's anything here so controversial.
No, I just am thinking about parallel structure.
One thing we could do is remind people that in the book itself, there are the recommendations.
Yeah.
When we start the meeting.
Yeah, we can do that. I can do that.
They all, I mean, I think most of them would have this.
Yeah, they received it in their homes, and they should have a copy that they're bringing to follow along with. Most of them will.
Quicker if we just send out a chance that they'd be willing to look it up.
Yeah, will do. That's what I'll do. Yep. Recommended it to their consideration, because the grounds for the recommendations are well placed in the book. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
I wonder, is there anything else? So, from the standpoint of conduct of the meeting. So we're going to have recommendations of masks, except if you're talking, but anybody can do as they wish, I think. I think
We're gonna have masks available on
Yeah.
the table at both entrances.
Yeah.
There are gonna be signs that say, please wear a mask.
yeah,
We have 300 seats out there, but we're expecting, less than that.
yeah.
Honestly, I think we'll be around 1 to 150, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll also probably write on, these spread out. You don't have to sit next to each other,
Yeah.
shoulder to shoulder.
If you
There's
can,
plenty of
spread out.
seats.
Yeah,
We technically can't refuse somebody entrance because they're not wearing a mask.
Yeah,
So we're
okay.
not, we can't require masks,
Okay.
but we're highly recommending them.
very good, yeah.
And
That's
certainly, when you're at the microphone, take your mask down. There'll be covers, microphone covers at the podium. Either I'll have somebody switching them in between, or when you get to the podium, just put a new cover on the microphone. But
Mhm.
where we are.
Sounds good to me, and I'm a little worried that the air conditioning is not going to be able to handle the load.
It's definitely going to be hot in here. We're doing our best. We have a couple tricks as far as prep goes. The days leading up, we'll have all the blinds down. We'll have fans going. We'll have AC
So-
units on in the offices and open them up early in the morning and try and get that air conditioning flowing in. But at the end of the day, it's going to be 80-something degrees. It's going to get hot in here. So dress comfortably. And hopefully we move through it as fast as possible.
I see that there's actually door closers on those two windows up there, and I don't know how you open them up, but heat rises,
Especially the hottest guy's gonna be standing like right under him.
With my luck, if you open them, they'll get a seagull will go in there and drop his load on me for granted.
Just at the beginning of the meeting, you'll open us up. You'll call the meeting to order, right?
Sure, yeah.
And then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. The chairman, Josh, will present the scholarship award.
Mm-hmm.
Moderator will present the Citizen of the Year award.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the recognition of the 2 firefighters and police officer.
Okay.
I'll read that, and the chiefs will provide them their life-saving medals, and then we go into the resolution.
Okay, there's also American Legion scholarship is also going to be
I'll
presented.
go, I'm sorry, back to back with the other, with the Charles Kelly Scholarship.
Right. And so,
No, we'll go, the last thing before we get into the resolution will be the award to the recognition of the firefighters and police officer.
Tony, are you going to be doing a robocall to announce the town meeting?
Yes.
Maybe in that you could encourage mask usage?
Yes, yep, I discussed that with our health nurse earlier today.
Oh, good.
I'll definitely mention that.
Great.
Encourage it in the robocall tomorrow.
Good. Well, I think we're ready to go. I'm so glad to get back into town hall. I hope it works. I hope that, is there any likelihood that we'll have somebody faint or something like that if it gets too hot? I don't know. Should we get, we don't need to have a ambulance waiting by or anything.
No, but I think we'll be okay.
I think so too. Yeah.
We have water. Council on Aging will be selling hot dogs downstairs.
Downstairs.
All good there.
That's a good idea.
We could hook up a garden hose, but I could.
Outside,
I mean, inside here, if somebody looks like they're getting peaked or something, I could just spray them down or something.
Seriously, so we don't have to bring lunch,
That's all I have to.
except,
Board and the finance committee, if you guys are all set, we just.
Finance Committee, make a motion? All right.
Let me just say one more time, thank you. The work that's gone into this is very clear, and your efforts are going to make things go smoothly on Saturday.
I think a hand for the Finance and Advisory Board.
Okay, but
Absolutely.
also to a
And
hand
certainly
to the
for
town
Tony.
hall. Motion on the floor, Barba? Aye. Beatty?
aye.
Brown?
Aye.
McMacken?
Aye.
Sheehan? Vanderslice?
Aye.
Warren? Zahara?
Aye.
Charmy, aye, that's unanimous.